Now, let's get on with our program. I have the honor to open the first formal session of the 2017 Asian Humanism Conference. But before we begin, a couple of reminders. May I remind everyone to please silence their phones and other devices during sessions, refrain from littering in the premises, maintain proper decorum at all times, and approach any conference staff if you have any questions or issues. Now, there will be a Q&A portion at the end of every session, so please hold your questions until the designated time. So for the first speaker, he is an assistant professor, professorial lecturer at BLSU Manila, as the spokesperson of the Knights of Rizal in the Torre de Manila issue, has a Bachelor of Arts and Masters in History, and is currently taking his PhD in UP Diliman. The original bottom liner for The Bottom Line with Boyabunda, a historical consultant of History with Lord, and the teleseries of Ilustrado and Katipunan, host of Xiao Time segment at PTV4, and the co-author of the book Bonifacio, Ang Unang Pangulo, or Bonifacio, the First President, and coordinator of the petition for Andres Bonifacio to be recognized as the first President of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Michael Charleston Xiao Chua.
Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be here. First of all, I would like to thank HAPI for making me happy and inviting me here. I will be so happy to tell you about my country, about our nation. Not so many people realize. Oh, by the way, first, while Kuya is doing this, I brought with me some copies of a book which I was the consultant. It's called What Kids Should Know About Andres and the Katipunan. But it's not just for kids. It's really a basic summary of the ideals and the story of the Philippine Revolution. So if you're interested, you can approach me later about it. Ayun, there. Okay. Not so many people realize, because people had always been focusing on political history, always. That if you look at the cultural side of the story of the nation, our nation, the Philippines, is actually brought out of an imagination by our heroes that is based on reason, enlightenment, and love. It means that this is the dream of the founders of the Bayan, that we may have reason, enlightenment, and love. And this is the story that I came here to tell you. You can follow me on Instagram if you want, if you have other questions, at xiao.chua. I have a website, xiaochua.net, about historical narratives. Okay, let me tell you what we were before the coming of the European colonizers. We were a multi-ethnic, and we still are, a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multicultural people in the islands. And culturally, a lot of people were saying there was no culture before the coming of the Europeans. But we actually have archaeological evidence of early boat making, 300 AD. According to experts, the Filipinos, the Austronesians that came here in the Philippines, were the ones who invented the outrigger canoe. So we were the masters of the sea in Southeast Asia. From the Philippines, we scattered around Oceania, Polynesia, up to Madagascar in South Africa, and Easter Island in South America. That's why if you're going to look at it, there are similarities of culture in the whole of Southeast Asia and Australia and the rest of Polynesia and the Pacific Islands. If you're going to look at our bulol in the Cordillera, you also have that in the Easter Island Moais. We were a maritime culture. All our people were living near the seas and the rivers. That's why if you're going to look at it,
our worldview was, we believed in the afterlife before. But our worldview was, we travel by boat to the afterlife. We believed that we believe in the soul, so to speak. If you're going to look at this jar, a burial jar called Manunggol jar, located at the National Library now, we believe in the soul, but that soul goes back to nature. And that's why we respect nature before. If we want to cut a tree, we have to pray to the tree to give us, to let us build the house and bless that house. If you're going to also look at it, we put our dead into boats in some areas of the country. You have there the grave marker that is a soul in a boat, just like in the Manunggol jar. And you have both coffins in Cordillera. I would just like to show you that despite the fact that we are multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multilingual, the Austronesian roots of this nation actually makes us one. If we have the internet now as the network of our people, you also have now, thank you so much. You also have then the seas and the rivers as the network of the Filipinos. We were different in political entities, but we were united in culture with this maritime boat making and maritime worldview. So we have both grave markers also in Batanes Island in Luzon. So if you're going to look at it, we believed in the soul, but the soul is just one part of the life force that is inside every human being. If the soul is good, there would be well-being. The soul is in the mind. If your soul is good, if your kaluluwa, if your soul is righteous, the alignment of it is going to heaven, we believe that we're going to have well-being, a good life. We call that ginhawa. And so we protect that our soul be good, that bad spirits will not come to it. That's why we wear anting-anting that is made of gold. That's why you cannot say that we did not have our own culture, because even the Spaniards drew the Filipinos in the Baxter Codex when they met us, encountered us in the 16th century. We were wearing gold. So, goodness, if you are good, if you are a human being with a good heart, that means that you would have a good life. We also believe that our datus can make commitments for us, and we do the blood compact so that our communities can band together to have a more strong political entities. We call these entities bayan or banwa in the Visayas, bayan in Luzon. And that blood compact, we call it sandugo. And sandugo is the Tagalog term for one blood. Brotherhood or Kapatiran is actually the basis of the formation of the community in the Philippines. That we treat each other as brothers. That we treat each other with good faith. That's why if you're going to look at it, there's equality in the genders in the Philippine pre-colonial history. The political person, the political head was the datu, was male. But the spiritual leader is in many ways even more powerful than the datu, was the babaylan, who is usually a woman. But a man can cross-dress and mimic the babaylan. Also, we were trading with each other. We became part of the Southeast Asian trade route to China. That's why we had rich kingdoms here in the country, including the ones that was here, that used to be here. Manila, the kingdom of Raja Sulaiman. The Chinese were trading with us. Yesterday we celebrated the 600 years of the friendship between the Philippines and China with the 600th anniversary of the visit of the Sultan of Sulu to the Imperial Palace in Beijing, when he was treated with like royalty. But something happened while we were having this life. The Spaniards came in the 16th century, and they planted the cross. And people said that we were colonized con la cruz y espada, with the cross and the sword. And my colleague, Professor Ybiernas, tells me, if that was true, visit Fort Santiago. Fort Santiago is very small for the national headquarters of an army of the Spaniards. It can only house about a few hundred soldiers, which means that not so many soldiers from Spain came here to subjugate the country. So yes, probably they employed some force to the colonization, but the Spaniards cannot do it. They used something else, and they used the priest. And they planted us with an idea. They only have to colonize our brain to serve their purposes. And unfortunately, even if religion is not necessarily bad, they used religion to subjugate a whole people. The Spanish crown had an agreement with the Vatican that Spain will give priests stipends. But the Vatican will never ever interfere with the colonization of the colonies. That's their agreement. It's called the Royal Patronage of the, or the Patronato Real. That's why, in many ways, the church and the state was together during the Spanish times. They have to replace the Babaylan with their priests. They have to indoctrinate us, and that is when that idea started. Even in the town planning, where they place the church in the center of the town, the church is center of everything. You have there the plaza of Intramuros here in Manila. That's the center of Spanish Empire in the East. This is the center, was the center of Spanish Empire in the East. They placed the churches in the center so that we would always think that the center of our life is religion. The idea that they planted to us was obeying Spain is obeying God. If you do not obey Spain, we are all going to hell. Mapupunta kayo lahat sa impyerno! That's why the legacy of the friars, ladies and gentlemen, was the view that we had a bipartite view of history. Before they came, we were barbarians. We did not have our own culture, and we were backward. And when we were colonized, we have the marvelous Catholic. We got the marvelous Catholic civilization, maravillosa civilización cristiana, and we got Enlightenment. But of course, it came with a lot of price. We followed Spain, and we also followed their policies. Polo y servicios, 40 days forced labor every year for male people. Vandala, which is the confiscation of goods, paying little for the goods that they buy from the people. I'm not saying that all of what Spain brought was misery. There were a lot of good things, but we have to accept that these things happened. That they gave us a worldview that they were civilized and we were uncivilized. They were master and we were slave. They were colonizer and we were colonized, and we lost our identity. We lost pride on ourselves. We were Indios. In Spain, there were two Spains. Spain in the Philippines was backward. But Spain in Spain, by the 18th century, there were liberal ideas that were coming to Spain as well. And to France, the philosophes were talking about the Enlightenment. That there should be reason over religion. That science must be above superstition. These ideals guided the revolutionaries of America, which rebelled against England in 1774, and of course, the French Revolution, which shouted liberty, equality, and fraternity in 1789. The South American Spanish colonies also followed suit. They also rebelled against Spain, and because of this, the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, with the Spanish Revolution happening and winning, it ceased by 1811. That's why the Spanish monopoly to trade, the Chinese and Spanish monopoly in trade in the Philippines was stopped. The world, with foreign, with foreign investors or with foreign traders needing people for them to help them trade in the country. They're middlemen. It's not the Spaniards who will work for them. It's the Indios and the Chinese mestizos. That's why eventually, these people became rich. Indios, some Indios became rich, and eventually, these Indios who became rich, a whole generation of their children went to school in the Spanish schools and in the European schools in the Philippines and in Europe. And so, that's why they got the Enlightenment vibe. These Indios who went to Ateneo, UST, Letran, eventually, like Jose Rizal, who recently celebrated 150th birthday, you'll see them in one generation, all these heroes. Bonifacio, Mabini, Mariano Ponce, Antonio Luna, they were all in one generation. And they experienced that when the secular priests, Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora, were asking for reform in the priesthood in the Philippines, the Spaniards' answer was to execute them with the garrote, which will cut their neck, basically. This whole generation of Filipinos, they also went to Spain, like Jose Rizal. You have the Jose Rizal, right there. You unmistakable one-sided emo hair. And you have Marcelo H. Del Pilar, who's with Jose Rizal there, who's the father of Pringles. I'm joking. Okay. Okay. The reform movement in Spain, the Ilustrados, they had this organization called La Propaganda. Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, Mariano Ponce, Antonio Luna, Juan Luna, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, they were ordinary people like us. This is Jose Rizal, and Juan Luna as Cleopatra in a cosplay. This is probably the first cosplay. You have Jose Rizal, Hidalgo, the painter, Juan Luna, Jose Rizal looking at you in a black frame. This is Jose Rizal playing the flute, Juan Luna, they're playing music. They're very much like us. They're human beings, they're ordinary people. This is Jose Rizal wearing a funny hat. They're having a cosplay again. And this is food porn, propaganda style. After talking about what's going to happen to our country, where they were, you know.
Oh, wow, drunk.
They were like this. We always study in school that the Ilustrado means the enlightened, educated. But that was not enough explanation. Because when you say Ilustrado, they were believers of the Enlightenment philosophy. It's not just that they were educated, they were believers of the Enlightenment philosophy. They were members of the Masonry. They believed that reason should be over religion and science should be over superstition. So why were our heroes our heroes? Not because they died, not because they had many women in their lives, not because they were so intelligent, but because they have to shatter that idea of colonialism. That we can never be better than the foreigners. Juan Luna painted the Spoliarium to show the people, hey, we're so good at painting, you know. Jose Rizal also sculpted. He was a universal man. He was a Renaissance man. Developing his human potential in the arts and in the sciences. They were making their bodies strong. They were fencing. They were bodybuilders. Like Jose Rizal had this dumbbell. Of course, dumbbell is not for the dumb, you know. And they wrote. And they wrote a lot. They wrote in the... Rizal, for example, wrote 3 books. 2 of them, 2 novels that tell us that we have one experience of pain under colonialism. And another book, A History of the Philippines, written by a Spaniard that he annotated, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. Rizal showed there that we have one identity. Why? And this is why Zio Salazar, my mentor, said that the legacy of the propaganda movement was the tripartite view of Philippine history as against the bipartite view of history. And what is this? They showed that we had freedom, commerce, and our own culture before the Spaniards came. We were colonized and there was enslavement and darkness. and we will regain our freedom, and there would be enlightenment. This is what they believe. That we were okay. And other propagandists like, who's this guy? Graciano Lopez Haina and Mariano Ponce, they were writing for De La Solidaridad, and Marcelo H. Del Pilar, and Isabelo de los Reyes, for example, had studies in anthropology, studied folklore and the history of Ilocos. They were showing histories of the Philippines. Graciano Lopez Haina wrote about priests who were fat, not as fat as me, but you know, they were so fat that sometimes they cannot walk. And Marcelo H. Del Pilar showed us about the monastic supremacy of the Philippines. They were saying that the philocracy in the Philippines, not necessarily religion, but the abuse of religion, is the one that should be kicked out of the country. Of course, the propaganda movement was defeated. Spain did not listen. But despite that, a lot of people do not realize that they were actually successful in the formation of the Filipino identity. That they were showing us, no, who is the Filipino and what a Filipino can be. Jose Rizal went back to the Philippines to establish the La Liga Filipina because he knew that Spain would not be listening. And Rizal wanted a peaceful organization to unite the whole archipelago into one compact, vigorous, and homogeneous body, mutual protection in every want and necessity, defense against all violence and injustice, encouragement of instruction, agriculture, and commerce, which is basically humanism. He wanted us to unite as a people. But the problem is, 3 days after La Liga Filipina was formed, on July 3, 1892, Rizal was arrested. The next day, one of our national heroes,
Okay.
one of our national heroes, Andres Bonifacio, who was also well-read in what happened in America and in France, even if he was a working-class guy and did not finish school, he was reading Rizal, established the kataas-taasang kagalang-galang na Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan, the highest and most honorable association of the sons of the people, the Katipunan. And people like Bonifacio and Emilio Jacinto was schooled in UST as a law student. They not only talked about humanism, because Jacinto copied the rules of the Katipunan from the Declaration of the Rights of Man of the French. He translated it, and Rizal also translated it, but they drew from inspiration from what I was talking about before, the pre-colonial culture of our people. They brought back the sandugo. We were one brothers, and that's why we're going to see here that eventually there would be a difference between the Ilustrado view of the freedom and the Katipunan view of freedom, which is basically the Ilustrados wanted a Nasyon, that we are citizens with rights guaranteed under a written constitution and a declaration of independence. But Bonifacio added something, the indigenous concept of Inang Bayan. Haring Bayan, he called this nation. Sovereign nation. Haring Bayan. That's basically demos kratos, democracy. Sovereignty and power belongs to the Bayan or people. Brotherhood and sisterhood of the sons and daughters of the people to one mother, the Inang Bayan, mother country. The people treating and loving each other as brethren with mabuting kalooban, goodness. Again, that good soul will give good well-being or good life, well-being, kaginawaan, and well-being and kaginawaan is true freedom. That means, in sum, there is no freedom without well-being. If the life is not good, even if you cannot vote, you have no true freedom. But good life will not happen if you do not have the good soul. If we're going back to the goals of the Katipunan, from the writings of the people from the pamphlets that they give to new members, it is said there, in the second paragraph, this association pursues a most worthy and momentous object, to unite the hearts and minds of all the Tagalogs, by means of an inviolable oath, in order that this union may be strong enough to tear aside the thick veil that obscures thought, blinds our minds, and to find the path of reason and enlightenment. Tunay na kaliwanagan at katuwiran. But sir, why only Tagalog? Why not the Visayans and the Mindanaoans? If you're going to look at it, there was what do you call that? Asterisk in the Tagalog word that says, and there's a footnote. The word Tagalog means all those who came from this archipelago. Therefore, even a person who is a Visayan, Ilocano, or Pampanga, etc. is therefore a Tagalog too. So we are all Tagalog, Tagailog, river people. I'm going to my conclusions. What is the Katipunan's first commandment? You will not believe it because people are teaching that the Katipunan is a violent organization. They only want violence. But, according to this document, Andres Bonifacio wrote, one of the foremost rule here is true love. The first commandment of the Katipunan is to love. And Andres Bonifacio wrote in the Decalogue of the Katipunan, 1, believe with fervent heart in the Creator, and 2, reflect always that the sincere faith in Him involves love of one's native land because this shows true love of one's fellow. Love of God, love of country, and love of people are all in the same vein. You cannot separate. You cannot say, hallelujah, and you don't love your country. You want to go out of your country and abandon your identity. We won that revolution against Spain. We established the first constitutional democratic republic in Asia that is also built, according to Aguinaldo's flag, on libertad, justicia, y igualdad. He had an advisor, Apolinario Mabini, who became, a PWD in 1896, and despite that fact, he became one of the brightest in the revolution. He placed in the Constitution of the Philippines the separation of church and state. And he also said, thou shalt worship God in the form which thy conscience may deem most righteous and worthy. For in thy conscience which condemns thy evil deeds and praises thy good ones speaks thy God. Very humanist. Thou shalt not recognize in thy country the authority of any person who has not been elected by thee and thy countrymen. For authority emanates from God, and as God speaks in the conscience of every man, the person designated and proclaimed by the conscience of the whole people is the only one who can use authority. Thou shalt not strive for a republic and a monarchy, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, etc., etc. But Mabini was ousted in the revolution. That's why the fight for Kapatiran, kabutihang loob, kaginhawaan, and kalayaan that our ancestors fought for, we're still fighting for it until today. Times are now different. Today we can direct our own life. We can be who we are and love freely our fellow men, our bayan. But it is now as if we have stopped loving. What did our heroes fight for? Our rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of information, freedom of investigation and due process, freedom from force, torture, violence, threat, and intimidation. But why are we so happy to surrender our freedoms and human rights and say we need discipline and not freedom? I say, if we want to love our country and we teach love of country, to respect human rights is to love. Heroism begins with love. But look at the nation today. Why are we fighting each other, killing each other, and bashing each other in social media? Why were there times in our history that we killed our own fellow men during the time of dictatorship, and even today with terrorism and with other things? Why did we kill the father of the nation, Andres Bonifacio? Why did we kill one of our greatest generals, General Luna? Where is my country? The country that during EDSA Revolution, the ones that's supposed to die, to kill you, the soldiers, you did not spit at them. You did not kill them. You did not say bad words to them. You gave them flowers. And we hugged them and said, why are we killing each other? We are all Filipinos. It is up to us now, happy people, to make real the imagination of our heroes. Reason, love, enlightenment for our people. It's time to save the Filipino race.